They're gonna jump you up. Yeah, tell her with business like that. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. To some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. How's my voice coming through, gentlemen? Do I sound clear? This one, I'm not sure how I sound to you guys. Okay, Free Will Defender says, I sound clear down by the riverside, gives me a thumbs up, excellent. All right. Can you still hear the track playing? Is the track also clear? Excellent, thanks for the feedback, Stream Team Memes. I like that name, by the way. Okay, gentlemen, I don't endorse music as a whole, but when it comes to war, it's a different topic. Some of the rules are generally relaxed. And as I said, we're engaged in a war. I'm not necessarily passing a fatwa, I'm just explaining the reason that you hear what you hear. Now, yeah, there is an echo. That's the room itself. So it's not the mic, but the room has an echo. You saw the title, and this message is in the same vein as I came not to bring peace, but a sword. And in that verse, attributed or quoted to Jesus, peace be to him, he also says that he came to turn son against father and mother against daughter. And I came in for something else. I came to turn mother against daughter, but I did not come to turn son against father. I am here unabashedly and unashamedly to turn thinking black men against idness, and to turn thinking black men against gynocrat goons and matriarchal mandingos, and even against men who validate dysfunctional women and encourage other men to seek their validation in return, who counter their validation, who count the validation in general. I came to draw that line in the sand. Because you see, even to count the validation, to seek it is bad enough, but to count the validation of an invalid, broken woman is even worse. And then to turn and encourage others is even worse. And I've been listening to several arguments lately, even from men that are, I would say, maybe not in the manosphere. They may not call themselves manosphere men. I mean, some say that SYSBM is not manosphere, and that can be debated, but men who seem to be conscious of the gender dynamic and how skewed it is in the West are still making some arguments, even at advanced ages, that don't hold water. Now, I can understand why some young guys might make the argument because they're still in their natural state. And in the natural state, men and women are they're drawn to each other. But not every woman and every man are always drawn to each other either. That's not a natural state. There's also a shyness in their preferences in a natural state. But when you get up to a certain age, and I would say really by the time a man is 19, he should be aware of how skewed the dynamic is. I already drew the comparison between the Wicked Witch of the West and the broken vending machine. And if a vending machine is broken, you can't brag because you put in inadequate change and you still got the snack that costs more according to the labels. The machine's broken. Somebody else is going to put in extra and not get what they paid for. That's not something to brag about because the machine is broken, and everyone's going to understand that if you put in less and got more, then either the owner is going to go out of business or the machine's going to turn around, and in order to stay in business, the machine will then charge someone else more for less to make up for the fact that some are getting more for less. I already drew the comparison between the hybristophiliac broad who assesses manhood according to white supremacist slave market ideas and a store owner who gives freely the most expensive candy to the most disrespectful mother cuss word that walks in and then charges the respectful clientele extra for the cheap candy to make up for it and doesn't even hide it very well or just says it's my shop and my candy and I can do that. Now, if you were to go to such a shop owner and you called them honest, the first thing that the shop owner is going to try to do if they want to stay in business and not lose face in front of the neighborhood, the residents nearby, the neighbors, that shop owner is going to say, I'm not doing that. That's not what I'm doing. I'm not just giving the candy away to anybody for free. And the shop owner will either say that they didn't give it away and that it's been stolen, i.e. the corollary for that in the mating market is a rape charge, or they will say that they were deceived. The corollary for that would be, well, he's not who I thought he was. Or they will say that they were unaware, which is the same thing as saying that it was stolen. Or the other thing they will do is then they will then try to credit the disrespectful person for having done something nice for them, like, well, he watched the shop when I had to go on break on an emergency, or well, he helped me to stock some of the deliveries, or something like that. Lie and give undue credit to the person that was shoplifting, the disrespectful for the mucker. In order to justify giving them free candy, they turn around and make up something nice that they did. And so we're dealing with a situation like that right now. And most of you in the audience are not the ones that are walking into the store and picking the top shelf candy and walking out and saying, okay, F you later. And what happens is that after enough people go to the shop owner and they say, this is what you've been doing, and we're not going to buy your cheap stuff at this extra price, Or usually people would just stop going. But if they choose to confront that shop owner, eventually the shop owner is going to say, well, it's my shop and my candy and I can do that. That's what they can fall back on. And that's what the wicked witch of the West is doing. That's what this broken broad is doing. Now, I don't sit up here and focus on them because my life's a mess because of women. I focus on them because men and women are not going to just forget about each other. That's not the natural way that goes. I don't even think it's possible. But because things are skewed, I have to sit up and tell you what's going on. And you have to tell me what's going on when you learn something that I didn't know. And that's why I generally focus on ladies. Other parts of life you can figure out. Some of you are welders. Some of you are plumbers. Some of you are teachers. Some of you are pilots. You have different skills. You know what your skill is and you charge what you can charge for it. That sort of takes care of itself. But when it comes to what goes on between the genders, which is naturally an important part of life, we know that in the West it's skewed and it's always to your disfavor. Some of you are the guys for whom it was not even in your disfavor, but you still saw that it was unfair to other men, and you're in the audience now today. As a matter of fact, there may be more of you than what I would imagine, what anybody else would imagine, especially our naysayers. Well, what we're seeing now is that we're seeing the wicked witch of the West, and we've been seeing this for a while. We've been seeing the wicked witch of the West sit up and say, you know what, it's my body, my choice. And what they mean, I don't mean in terms of who they give birth to or when they give birth, but I'm talking about in terms of just who they pick. Well, I can choose who I want. And you think he's a bad dude, but he's really a good person when you get to know him. And when in reality, he leaves them broken, heartbroken, but also broken. And now even more broken than before. And then it gets to a point where they start to try some other men that don't leave them broken. It's okay, you only, Quad, what's going on, man? It's only been about 12 minutes. Now, in the end, it's still sad that we're sitting here listening to guys who validate broken women and then not only count, but seek out the validation from these broken women. We can be polite to them, but we cannot listen to these arguments anymore. These are people that we may like. And I'm going to give an example because there are those whom I may like and I learn from and I benefit from. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to let this particular argument slide and not say anything to you to pull your coat to it and get you hip to it. I don't blame Hafiz or the roommates, shout out to him, because he is, I think, in his 30s, if I'm not mistaken, 20s or 30s. And so when he hears about self-improvement, he understands better than he can articulate that self-improvement is something that one should do for himself. He understands that, he gets that. Shout out to Lionel MGTOW because he came up with the acronym BYFY, better yourself for yourself. That was his acronym, and that's part of his message. Yes, you better yourself for yourself. But when someone asked Hafiz, what do I do to get these broads? And Hafiz said, did you pay for my course? That's still a self-improvement course. That's still an answer. And self-improvement is not the problem. The issue is that he used that as an answer to that man's question. How do I get these broads? You don't. You need to know that the vending machine is broken. And what I want for Hafiz to do, but I'm not blaming him because he's young. But what I want for Hafiz to do is to not only tell this young man, it depends on where you are. If you're in a Western developed country, you don't. They're broken. The vending machine is broken. If you come with the correct change, they're just going to give you an inferior product. You come with the correct change, you make your selection, and it's going to kick something else out. And it will always manage to kick out what you don't want because that's what's available, because no one else wants it. So the bad treatment is going to be what you get. It's always going to be that. You will overpay and you will under-receive. But if you are not in the West and you're in an environment in which they're not westernized and turned into feminist and turned into misandrist, then that's when you can look at yourself and see what you can improve. You can look at yourself and see what you can improve anyway for your benefit, but it is only worth it if you're going to get women that are also doing the same thing themselves. And we already know the Wicked Witch of the West ain't going to do that. You see the ones they have on the Fresh and Fit podcast, they're dingbats, they're airheads. Well, I think, and it's not wrong that they're on there because they're showing us the flaw in their logic. And they're getting on there, and these men are telling them, no, see, you're not telling the truth right now. Either you intentionally lied right now, or you don't know that you lied, but you did not tell the truth. No, you don't want a man that's a virgin. That's why he's a virgin. Don't lie and say that you would love a man that's a virgin. That's not what you're looking for. You want the same thing every other woman wants. Keep it a buck. I like that they're doing this. I'm not blaming them for having these women on there. And I love how Mr. Organic tore that broad up. Will I bring inspiration to my man? Mr. Organic was like, inspiration? I don't need that. And one of the things that Mr. Organic was stating was that, contrary to what Kevin Samuel said, he did say that he wants a woman to have his own. He did say that. But then again, Kevin Samuels is talking about high value men. And according to Kevin Samuel's own definition, Mr. Organic would not necessarily be high value because he's in athletics or entertainment, in his case, entertainment. However, too many Instagram thoughts and IG thoughts and models and OnlyFans porn starlets, according to them, he would be a high value man. But it's good that they're getting on there because they're the ones that get the most validation from men, and you see how ditzy they are. And while the sad thing, though, is this, I'm not blaming Hafiz yet, but the thing is that he was not given this message young enough in life. Most of us are in this audience because we weren't. However, I've said that it is our job to go and put this message into the ears of younger men that we know in person, specifically for that purpose, so that when they get to be our ages, if some of you are in your 20s, some are in your 50s listening to me. But the point is that by the time they get to these ages, they won't really know or remember much of a time that they were deceived. That length of time that they spent in deception, let alone suffering from that deception, would be a very short time in their life, 3 or 4 years, maybe. I have said that we should set this up to where when they go to middle school, they know the game, just like their sisters on her first day of middle school know the game. Because when they're young, when they're in elementary, they're getting game from mom, grandmom, auntie, big sister. And the thing is that they're being socialized, ironically, to play games, but they're also being socialized to do things that drive us away the older and the smarter we get. And we got young guys now in their teens that are saying, man, I'm going monk mode. I'm leaving these broads. It's too dangerous. The reason they can do that, though, is because testosterone is lowering. And I have proposed before the theory that the one reason testosterone is lowering is not only the plastics that people are handling, because I don't recall a time when people were ever 100% healthy, but also because of an adaptation to the environment. The pituitary gland is responsible for other hormones. And the pituitary gland, that's in the brain. Now, it's not in a part of the brain that you use to think, but eventually your thoughts in the conscious parts of the brain that are used for thinking and concentration are bound to have an effect. This is how dogs become different at different skills, skilled at different things according to their breed. Border collies don't require much training in order to shepherd sheep, as an example. Most dog pups are born understanding the human gesture of pointing. Now, they don't have fingers, their parents don't, but we're the ones who can use fingers and point, and they understand it. Wolf cubs do not understand that. When wolf cubs are born, they don't understand the human gesture of pointing, and most adult wolves don't understand it. And even chimpanzees, who apparently have the DNA most similar to us, don't understand the human gesture of pointing. But puppies understand it even better than newborn infant babies understand it. This tells you something, that the mind is strong, DNA is strong. And so this is part of the reason why it is that men must have, we men must be experiencing drops in testosterone levels. Less testosterone is necessary. It's a matter of fact, high testosterone is not even beneficial. So when I say to you in the title that I came to turn this crap on its head, I came to come against the men who sit up and use self-improvement as an answer to Western men asking how they can get women in the context of the West, meaning developed nations, and even some undeveloped nations or developing nations. what they would call second world, like Trinidad and Tobago, like the Bahamas. Because some guys in here are from the Bahamas, and they said it's gone, it's over in the Bahamas. Now, the Bahamas economy might be very strong, so it may be that they count as a first world nation. I'm not really sure. But Trinidad and Tobago, I believe they're considered second world according to the economy. Developing. And it's over there. It's over. As a matter of fact, they're just now beginning to have that whole simp culture and gynocentrism questioned. It's just now starting. There was a guy on Facebook. His name is Sion Fadia. And Sion Fadia put up a post about how, since he's a childless black man, you don't come at him with your kids, single moms. Talk about I got these 4 blessings. He said to you, no, you coming with a handicap. Now, he didn't blame single moms for loving their kids. What he said is don't come to him with the kids. He's childless. They're a handicap. End of story. You know what wound up being said? They came after him until he took the post down. I recently sent him a private message on Facebook, and I said to him, look, man, a bunch of men got your back, not just in your country, but even in the States and in other places, man. We got your back. You're right. In Sion Fadia, if you can ever hear this, if anybody knows who he is, please send this to him and tell him to click on the 22-minute, 24-second timestamp. Sion Fadia, if you ever hear this, man, there's several men throughout the West that got your back, and the number's only growing. Yeah, Stream Team memes. Yeah, Trinidad and Tobago too. It's bad there, bro. Sion Fadia, you were absolutely right for what you said. You do not have to sit up here and go through your life accomplishing what you've done to become as professional as you must be based on your Facebook profile, only to have unprofessional on top, but then additionally completely uneducated single moms coming at you with their so-called blessings, like you're supposed to just take them on and raise them like your own. Because what that's them saying to you is that you are genetically inferior, and probably assuming that you're genetically inferior for 2 things. 1, your profession. Number 2, your phenotype. And I say that for a reason. See, in response to Sion Fadia's post, another lady whose name I forgot, I think she tweeted, if I'm not mistaken, but maybe it was on FB. Anyway, I saw the screenshot. And what she did was she took Sion Fadia's post and she reworded it only to change one thing. She was addressing light-skinned men, but she was using his same wording outside of that. Only changed it just enough to be the same post addressing light-skinned men, talking about their coming with a handicap. Just like he said, you're never going to be the same as a childless woman to a childless man. She said, you red men are never going to be the same as a darky with a beard. Now, in Trinidad, they can use the term darky as a compliment. Of course, we know in the States, that's not used as a compliment. If you call me darky, I'd be happy. But then again, that's because in the winter, I darn near look like Casper. So, of course, it's a compliment to me. But what she said, darky with a beard, she meant as a compliment to them. See, that's a broken woman, not because of her preference, but because of how she states it and how she turns around and conflates a man's preference over which a woman has control, considering that Western women always brag about the control they have and flaunt it, my body, my choice, my agency, to the extent that even Jada Pinkett Smith sat up and told her husband, while she confessed that she cheated with a man much younger than herself, she sat up here and said, well, I'm the only one that can choose. But then she doesn't want him to get back at her. Well, that means that they flaunt. They always talk about their control, their choice. Well, we F who we want to. You F who you can. Don't they love to say this? So what we got to do is say, okay, well, this is what you choose. Okay, then you're going to deal with the consequences of that choice. You bring me some other man's kids. You better send them kids to their father. I ain't got nothing against the dad. I ain't got nothing against the kids. But if you were married or not and you want to be with me and I'm childless, you send them kids to their dad. You should have done that anyway. Don't come to me talking about I need to raise some other man's kids, because all you really saying, you B word, you airhead, dingbat, ditzy broad, all you really saying is that I'm to provide for them, but I'm not to discipline them because I ain't their daddy. And you had control over becoming a single mother. But then you want to turn around and diss men for phenotypes they don't have control over. You can have a preference, but you call it a handicap. This is what I'm saying is that mindset shows you that she's a broken vending machine. So to you men that ever for 1 second attempt to use the validation of the wicked witch of the West, who Lion of MGTOW rightfully called, shout out to him, called Klingon bees, as some sort of validation. You cannot sit up here and talk to men, especially Black Western men, and say that her validation is a necessity. Because what you're doing is you're taking adults and putting their validation into the hands of children. I don't like to compare women to children, but in the West, they're effing children with breasts. It's just that simple. They are not that intelligent. They can be, they have a natural intelligence, but we've seen how they dumb themselves down for 2 reasons. One, they're told that we can't handle intelligent women. No, we can't handle stupid women that walk around getting us into fights, talking about protect me if you are a real man. But then additionally, after telling themselves that we can't handle intelligent women, the other thing too is that we've not really demanded. We can't deal with their stupidity, but we men have been taught not to demand that they be intelligent. Because we've been taught even by these old fools who themselves were taught by old fools. Get all you can. You ain't no real man if you don't get none. Take what you can get. Man, don't worry about her mind, bro. She got the same parts every other woman did, and she's willing to give it up. You need to go get that, bro. Come on. There's always a catch. And that's what these old fools ain't telling you. And I'm going to tell you. I'm going to straight tell you, there's always a catch. That's why it is that they value the roles more than they value you and your parts, more than they value me and my parts. It's not because anatomically the rose hits the clit and we tend to miss or neglect it. No, the clit's in the location for us to miss and neglect it. We didn't design them that way. If you design women, would you have put the clitoris just out of reach of your junk and your Johnson, like just out of reach? Less than an inch out of reach? You would have never done something like that. You wouldn't design them that way. They didn't design themselves that way either. I don't blame them for it, but at the end of the day, it comes down to the fact that they value the rose, not for the reason that Sarah Lena said only, that's part of it, but it's also simply because they have the worst possible combination that any human being could have of insecurity and arrogance. Now, I don't know how you manage to have both, but wicked witches of the West have put the two together in the worst possible combination. Again, the reason I'm complaining about this is really only to specify to you why it is that it is invalid for these men to get up here. You would expect some of the ladies to say, well, my validation means something. How do we have men in this space, 20s, 30s, or 40s, but especially 40s and above? Hell, especially 30s and above. Sitting up here and telling us that our manhood is partially dependent upon female validation. That would be true if they were normal and if our validation mattered to them. But we're in an environment in which they're telling us that our validation does not matter to them and that it might actually be a bad thing because we're just bad by nature. But then they got men telling us that their validation matters to us, and that's part of our manhood. You cannot put adult validation into the hands of children. And this is why it is that in my profession, as a teacher and a professor, when I taught grade school and when I taught university here, when they do an assessment, now granted, we have administrators that are scared of the students and scared of their parents because they're citizens, and administrators are from outside of the Gulf, and even that's changing really, but we got that. We're dealing with that. You know what the issue is though? Generally speaking, the procedure is that they have to take into account only what students complain regarding the educational ability of the teacher. Now that's the procedure. They can get feedback from students about a teacher, but it's not to be they're not to factor in how the student likes or hates the teacher. What they're to factor in is how much the student is capable of learning from that teacher. And that's because you cannot put the validation of a teacher in the hands, especially of young students when they're children, because they'll complain about anything. They want a free A. They want to do no work and be praised and rewarded. We all want that, but kids are still young enough and dumb enough to demand it. And that's the exact same thing you see with these so-called grown wicked witches of the West. Same thing, regardless of their origins. If they're Western or Westernized, that's something that they bring to you. And the ones who don't are so quiet, you never find them. So when you hear men, I'm saying not just that I came to turn this mess upside down, but I'm here to tell you, when you hear men come with that valuing, that estimation, that high estimation of their validation in the context of the West, developed nations, or in the context of any nation or culture in which they are feminist, let alone misandrous, you look at that man and you say, you are a further-mucking fool. You don't know what the F you're talking about. Call them on it. And if they're old, call them on it even more for being that old and being that stupid. We don't have time for that. We never did. If we had time for it, they wouldn't be preaching this because they're against us. So I don't really want to take too long with this, but I did want to go ahead and point this out, that we're going to have to start not just trying to reach the youngsters with this. And I'm talking youngsters like 4th and 5th grade, but face to face though. I also wanted to tell us, to point out to us, that we're going to have to start discrediting just the same way that the wicked witches of the West discredit women that are nice to us, as we call them pick-me's and pick-meishas. We're going to have to start discrediting these men that sit up and say, their validation and or what women have chosen you. What do you mean? You talking about in the context of the West with the misandry and feminism? You talking about that? In that context, which women have chosen me? I mean, I personally have been chosen and unchosen. Most men are going to go through both at some point. But if a man's going to sit up and ask that question in the context of the West, a developed nation, or any place into which feminism, let alone misandry, is now rearing its ugly head, you say to them, that's the problem. You say to them, we've all been chosen and unchosen. It's the same for most of us. But if you're being extra selected more often by the women in this environment, in this broken culture with nothing to show for it, then that means you're broken too. Because when they're broken and they want to stay broken, they're not going to pick a man that ain't broken. End of discussion about that. But then there's one more thing I'm going to say. We need to start attacking these niggas. And I said that word from the bottom of my black heart and the depth of my black mind. Niggas. We need to start attacking these folks. What's going on, Roger? Well, we need to start, or who we should start attacking, whom we should begin to attack, are these men who sit up and say, well, it's both sides, and women, it doesn't matter. Whoever says that it's both sides and they're talking about the context in which you live, in which I used to live and grew up, shut them down too. And you start saying, no, this both sides stuff that's played out. Both sides is exactly the same thing as this right here. Jada Pinkett Smith, she called it an entanglement so as to not take accountability. What they're doing is they're sitting up and they're saying, we will take no accountability if we can. Then, if we can't escape it, we'll turn around and try to share it with the men. No, shuck that fit, as I said before, because my opinion about this is right. Otherwise, I wouldn't have kept this opinion. I sat up and watched this happen again and again and again. The only thing that we men have done wrong is be too easy. Nothing else. That's why you got that guy in the UK with the glasses on, looking in the camera saying, it doesn't give you the right to call me a cuck. Put yourself in my shoes. If you really love someone and she has to get busy like that and I've got to sleep on the couch, that's what it means. No. You have that because that environment has been socialized like that. That's why you got that. You got that man sitting up and he's been too easy. He's proven the point. Polyandry is on the rise. Polyamory is on the rise. And these are the same women saying, not polygamy. Now, polygamy actually means either polygyny or polyandry. Polygamy actually is not specific. It just means one of one gender and multiples of the other gender. That's all it means. Polygyny means one man, multiple wives. Literally, it just means one man, multiple women, but they use it in the context of marriage. Polyamory is when they're talking about a woman, multiple boyfriends. Polyandry is when they talk about a woman with multiple husbands. Even though polyandry literally means one woman, multiple men, boyfriends or husbands. That's what it means, but literally speaking, translated from Greek to English, the issue we have, though, is that you got these same broads talking about my man can't have nobody else. Let me ask y'all this, guys. Put a 1 in the chat if you know who Minka is, and I'm not talking about Minka Kelly. If you know who Minka is, put a 1 in the chat. Don't lie. I'm not saying that you watch her or that you know everything or you're obsessed. I'm just saying if you know who she is, put a 1 in the chat. Let me give y'all time to do it. Okay, so nobody wants to admit that they know who she is. Okay, yeah, you can go ahead, Quaj. If I searched her here, I would get no results because they're filtered. This government blocks those sites, and that's cool. I'm glad they do, but you may have to. In the end, I want you all to understand this. What's important to understand is Minka was in that business, the one that's blocked here. You cannot, the industry does not exist here, and you can't do searches or purchase anything produced by that industry over here. So you understand which one I mean. Now, do you all know which industry I'm talking about? She was in it. I don't know if she still is or not, but she was back in the 90s. I assume early 2000s. I became Muslim 2002. So I guess she was still in the business. One thing I know is that there was an interview, and this was a regular PG-rated interview. That was from a few years ago. It's on YouTube about how she's trying, she was trying to still make money in today's environment. I don't know how, I can't remember exactly what year the interview was. It might be 6 or 7 years old now at this point. I remember seeing an interview in which she and her man were arguing about how they were going to continue to make money. And there were all these things she didn't want to do. And that man said, yeah, but we got to make money. We got to pay this mortgage and everything else. Now, that man used to do scenes with her. There was an interview that she gave years ago. I think I read this interview in 99 or 2000. Just an interview that was that you could read. And what she said in that interview regarding that man with whom she did the work was, I do who I want, but if he F's somebody else, he's out of a job. That's what she said. And she even said, I know that he's not what many other women want to see because of his glasses, but I like him. However, he can only do me. I can do anyone else. I kid you not. That's what she said in an interview. She and Minka's not from the West. She's a South Korean. If she's still alive, I don't know. But that stuck with me even back then, because I was like, wait a minute, we already know that polygamy works one way. I mean, we already know that most women want the same few men. We know also that women don't respect men that let them screw someone else. I know that. So in the end, what I'm saying is that There was someone who sat up there and said that this is what she insisted on a long time ago, but this was in the context of an industry. She wanted to sit up and put his junk on lock while she was free to not only do, but film with anybody she chose. If he does someone else, he's out of a job, but I screw who I want. Back in 99 or 2000, you had someone say this in an interview. Didn't even hide it. These are now the same. What you got now is regular run-of-the-mill broads that because they bought a butt or because they bought some memories and because they're a bunch of thirsty muckers on OnlyFans and whatever else, whatever other platforms there are. These broads will sit up and saying to you, oh, no, I can do what I want. But you're only going to do what I want you to do. No, you don't have options, but I have all the options. We're going to flip. What they're saying is they're going to flip this stuff on its head. That's what they're saying. What God has ordained one way, they're going to turn around and do it the opposite way. And it ain't even because they want to or because it's in their nature. That's not why. They're doing it because it's against your nature. And that's why I'm sitting up saying that you get militant and flip this on its head. That's why I'm here to do. So when it comes to anybody that says it's both sides, man or woman, get in them, rip them a new one. Go ahead and think about the arguments that you're going to have beforehand. Because Phantom Clutch, it's like you said, both sides really means F what you saying. I'm on their side. When they say it's both sides, they're going to always bring it back to you. And they're going to bring it back not only to our gender, but they're going to bring it back to the individuals from our gender that had nothing to do with this. Regular, normal, run-of-the-mill men who could not leave a string of broken hearts in their wake. Could not have done so. Most of us can't. You ain't even got to be a deformed or mediocre man for that to be the case. Normal men cannot. But now that we know that, that's our ammunition when they start saying that. Both sides. No. All these women who walk around here talking about they're broken and how they had their hearts broken. And most men have only had their hearts broken because they didn't even have any opportunities. These women they're talking about all these times that men got close and broke their hearts. The men, if they're heartbroken, it's because they weren't close to anybody. How's that both sides? The average, the normal man, even men that are above average, don't have that many opportunities to go around breaking a bunch of hearts. This one too. And this is one of the things we need to start telling these men. We need to tell these men, do not accept accountability for anything except being too easy. And this is proof of it right here. We got to let these men know. We got to remind these men when they say that. You sit up here and saying both sides when that's really not true because the women were not allowed it to be true. All that means, bro, is the women are going to hear you simping for the punani and they still ain't going to give you none. And when he turns around and says they ain't going to give you none either, you say, yeah, but see, I already told you that they're not going to give most men any. That's the difference. I know that's starting off. You act like you simping and pandering to them is going to increase your chances when in fact it lowers them. If I had a 0 chance with these women that can hear us right now, you got a negative chance. Neither one of us wins because in the end, they've already picked who they want. And they would rather let those same few men ruin their lives than to try a regular, normal, even above average man that would have been better for him. That's why Kevin Samuel is taken off like he is. It's not just that he went viral, but he went viral a few months after he started going in on the wicked witches of the West, the Klingon broads. Oh, so you want all of this from a man and you're bringing this little plus a handicap. You bring in an advanced age, a hell of a sundress size, several kids, and you've never been married. And you want a man with no kids and a lot of money and 6 feet tall and no diseases and all this other stuff, but you still want him to be experienced below the belt to come and take care of you and your kids and rescue y'all and act like he's their dad. And you ain't gonna give him no kids because you can't. Kevin Samuels is taken off largely because what he is showing, even if he doesn't say it, if Kevin turns around and says, well, it's both sides, get on him too. If he doesn't, leave him be. Keep supporting him. I've always said support for him has to be conditional. It's the same for me. Any support you have for me must be conditional. If I start falling off and saying stuff that you know is not true because you witnessed it. You witnessed that it's not true and you hear me saying it again and again. Yeah, go ahead. Withdraw your support. Something wrong with me. If you live somewhere where light-skinned men were never mistreated, then that's where you live. Tell me that that's where you live. Tell me what it was like where you live. But that doesn't mean I'm lying. Because what I'm telling you is that in the Southeast in which I grew up and then lived my adult life until I left the United States altogether, we were mistreated. Sometimes politely, but still mistreated. Other times impolitely and rudely. With the neck rolling, the finger snapping, and the pursed lips and the question, Ninja, what you gonna do about it, light bright? Either way, we were mistreated. But that doesn't mean I'm lying. But if you see something that is not true, regardless of region, something that's not true, regardless of decade, and you hear me say the same thing that you witnessed not being true, yeah, withdraw your support. Same for him. But the thing is that what he is showing, what Mr. Samuels is showing, even if he does not mean to show it, even if he doesn't believe it, is that it ain't both sides at all. You only got a few men that all of them have selected that even have the opportunity to go breaking hearts. And every man that all the women want don't go around breaking hearts, mistreating them. That's not even the case. I know several guys that women fawned over back in college, and they didn't go around breaking hearts. Even if they just disappointed some women, they didn't break hearts. They weren't that type of dude. Women liked them, but they weren't the type that just mistreated and used and abused and ran through women and counted them as notches on the belt and stuff like that. That wasn't them. So that means there's even fewer men than the ones that they're choosing, that are choosing enough of them for long enough to go and break their hearts. So don't let anybody tell you that it's both sides. And a matter of fact, you look them in the face and say, F your both sides argument. That's not even possible. We're only wrong for being too easy, only. At what point have we been too difficult? We don't even make it difficult to get to the altar until we see what little we're getting back in exchange. You got to show a man you have to show a man the risks of marriage, the bad deal that it has become for him to turn around and run from the altar. Why is it it's a big deal now that women are asking men to marry them? It's always been men asking women. We have made these things too easy. We've made the penis too easy for them. We've made all the favors above the belt and all the attention above the belt and outside the bedroom too easy for them. And we've even made marriage, which they want, the commitment they want, we've made too easy for them because we've been the ones that have gone and offered it to them. How does that make us actually guilty? What is there to correct us for if that's the case? That means we need to correct each other, really. And we need to start saying to each other, hey, man, you know what? She's checking you out. Don't look, but she's checking you out. Don't go over there and talk to her first. Especially if you know that she's one of them strong, independent women, don't need no man for nothing. She's strong. If you know that the woman's strong and independent and you see her staring at your, somebody else, he ain't even got to be your boy. She could be your home girl. And you don't know him. You go to him and you say, hey, listen, bro. She doesn't know that I know this, but she's a friend of mine. So I saw her looking at you. She's checking you out. Don't look. She's over my left shoulder. Don't look. Don't make it obvious. But she's going to try to get your eye. If she's your type, that's cool, but do not go and approach her first. If someone introduces you, fine, but don't go and approach her first. If she's your type visually, then tell me your name and then I'll introduce you. But do not go to her and approach her first. See, we got to start strategizing like this because women do all of these things without having a meeting, without even having discussions. They just come to all of these agreements just to make sure that it is not only too easy, but to make sure that it is actually too difficult, that they're too difficult. And then in exchange for what? In the West, you've already seen their children. They don't outgrow that childish mindset. Especially if they're even moderately attractive, let alone the bomb. If there are 4, they don't grow up. So don't get me started on if there are 7, all man, attitudes are terrible and childish. Can't pay attention for a second to something that you say. Half the time when they talk, they sound like they're asking a question, but grammatically they're actually telling you something. Well, which one is it? Are you telling me or are you asking me? Why does the pitch of your voice not match the grammar that not match the grammar what you're saying? How you gonna sit up and tell someone something, but you raise your voice at the end as if it's a question? Ask them what they want in a man and watch. The younger they are, the dumber they sound, because they start talking in these baby voices. I know I've had this conversation 100 times with them. And this was before I even turned 35. I had these conversations with them. Ask them what they want in a man. And the same woman, they can talk more than I can talk. Because, hey, I've been going for 51 minutes. But the same ones that can talk more than I can talk about anything else and annoy the hell out of you. And ask you a bunch of questions that you not only don't know the answers to, but to which you could not know the answers. Like, well, which team is about to win? Or why did this guy in this movie do that stupid thing? And you're both watching the same movie for the first time. How could you possibly know something like that if they don't know and you both seen the movie for the same time? The same ones that cannot but to shuck up and think for a second before they speak, even to ask questions, all of a sudden start talking with their hands, and they talk all breathy and struggle for words and start making sounds that don't mean anything. Well, I want a guy that has that umph, you know. What is umph? That's not a word, that's a sound. How do you go through all of this to impress someone that can't tell you what impresses them? And then turn around and let some other men or women tell you, well, it's both sides. And also, in addition to telling you it's both sides, what I said earlier. Self-improve. No. I came to flip this on his head because a lot of us men are still of the mindset that that these 7s, let alone 8s, 9s, and 10s, but that these 5s, 6s, and 7s cannot help but mistreat the men they mistreat, because these men are just so normal, or rather so mediocre, so bland. No, it's how they are. They can change, but that's how they are. It's not you. It's not most men. And even if a man does have a neck beard, no social skills, is 400 pounds and is living in his basement, understand, you can tell him to self-improve for his health, but you cannot tell that man self-improve for these broads. Don't tell him that either. If he says, what do I need to do? You can say to him, look, what you need to do is that work on your health and work on your professional skills so that you can save up money to leave the West. Don't say save up money to impress these broads. It doesn't matter how much you make. They're going to take you for everything. Understand this. Don't let these men talk about both sides, and don't let them talk about self-improvement in order to get these broads, because even when you self-improve, Jay Cutler, anybody? Is he not going through a divorce? And did he not shock everybody by simply putting his wife on the defensive and saying, I want half the company? Did he not shock you when he did this? If he shocked you when he did this, it's because, generally speaking, this has not been what's done. But Jay Cutler couldn't keep abroad. I'm not going to mention Bill Gates, because at the very least, she signed off on him digging someone else out, and he didn't sign off on her getting dug out by anybody else, at the very least. Although I don't promote adultery, but rather, as I've said, I do promote polygyny. Absolutely. Absolutely. But at the end, still, this man, she filed. I don't remember if Amal Clooney filed for divorce from George Clooney or not, but she complained about him publicly. Michelle Obama complained about Barack publicly and said the presidency put a strain on their relationship. What if he had lost? I don't know if she would have left or stayed if he had lost. But the fact is that she would have had something to say about him losing. Now she's got Secret Service protection for the remainder of her life. She can make money on the lecture circuit in his shadow. And she tripping, complaining to Oprah about him on a stage. Well, what do men need to do? Be better. Somebody throw some kryptonite at that broad so she'll fuck the shuck up. What I'm saying is that when these men are talking about self-improvement and becoming more so-called alpha, you got to understand that that's something to do in general is good for you, but you cannot let men even not just tell you, but you got to stop. We have to stop men from even telling each other this and start to get on their case about this. Her validation is a problem. She's broken. If she validates you, it means there's something wrong with you. Or she thinks something is wrong with you. Number two, self-improvement is only going to make them worse. You do it for yourself, but you must also escape from this broad. And number three, it's not both sides. It's her, it's not us. End of story. That's a classic case of somebody sitting up here and robbing a bank. And because you were their friend, and you didn't even know they were robbing a bank. But because you're their friend and you did not know how they got the money, they want to sit up and say, well, you participated too. No. Yeah, you see that quads the abstract? See? Yep. I forgot that she said she felt like a single mom in the White House. Of course she's going to feel like that in the White House. That's why they call it the White House. And she was the only one to sit up and say that. Now, he had to do the same thing any other presidents had to do. The good and the bad, he had to do it. If another president had to do it, good or bad, he had to do it. But he had to do his job. Now, if he had been shamed for not doing his job, which they tried to do to him anyway, despite him doing the job, but if he had been shamed enough for not doing his job, and someone could prove he wasn't doing his job, like George W. Bush didn't do anything until 9/11. By the way, between George W. Bush's inauguration and 9/11, he had already racked up about 90 days of vacation. In 9 months, he racked up 90 days of vacation. I kid you not. I don't mean he had 90 days he could have used. I mean, he used 90 days. He didn't act anything like a president at all would be expected to act until after that. And even then, it took him a few hours because he was at a school in Florida when it happened, and he was informed that he kept on reading to the kids. I'll never forget that. Some of y'all are too young to remember. And by the way, when he was reading to the kids, the book was upside down. I saw the photograph myself. This is before you had these professional, you had Photoshop and all that, but it wasn't as neat as what it is now. It wasn't as advanced as what it is now. And so if Barack Obama had actually been as shamed as George W. Bush for not doing his job, she would have turned around and left out of embarrassment. So what I'm saying is that this is somebody who's not going to be happy no matter what the F you do. And don't think I'm sitting up here and telling you that Laura Bush was any better. I'm sorry, I forgot. What's the son's wife's name? I think Laura is the mother, but what is the son's wife's name? I forgot her first name. In any case, don't think that George W. Bush's wife was any better. She grew up in Midland, Texas, and she killed a boyfriend with a car back then. I'm sorry, she killed her ex-boyfriend with a car back then and got away with it. So I'm not sitting up and telling you that either one is necessarily really better than the other one. What I would say is that at the very least, one played the role publicly. At the very least. Okay, thank you. Yes, the mother's Barbara. Laura is the wife. Laura Bush killed the ex-boyfriend when she was a teenager in high school with her car. But what she did not do was sit up here and bash her husband publicly. That she did not do. Michelle didn't just say she felt like a single mom and then excuse Barack because he had to do a job. She didn't even do that. I felt like a single mom. It put a strain on our marriage, of course it did. But then she turns around and says, well, you know, Barack is okay. Okay. Man, as president of the United States. Okay. Man, fit the guck out my face with that sure bit. I'm the one that objected to the wars that he and Bush waged. What's your objection? You see, What I'm getting at, gentlemen, is just that we got to turn this on its head. Start getting militant with these guys. The minute you hear both sides, no. We don't take accountability for anything except making it too easy. It's not us. We don't have that option. You're not approaching men. You're not risking rejection. That right there cancels that. You will brag about how you screw who you want because you're a woman, and a man screws who he can because he's a man. If you brag about that, you don't get to sit up here and say that it's both sides. You got a few men that have the opportunity to go around breaking all these hearts, and not all of them even choose to do it. So you got even fewer that are actually doing it. You're just mad because the one you wanted, everybody else wanted too. So he was overwhelmed and spoiled for choice. And now you're mad at all the men that had nothing to do with it. That's all that is. And we are not Jesus. Now, in my faith, we don't believe that Jesus was crucified or killed. But the point I'm making is that we do not even take the blame. We do not even accept the blame for things that other people did. Most men can't be responsible for this. It's not an option. Yep, Aisha Curry. Diss Steph Curry. And some people even said, yeah, well, she was going to diss him. He ain't what she wanted. And you know what? As far as I know, that's true. Because the stories have been that she curbed him back in the day. And Gabrielle Union admitted that she did not encourage them to stay together and be exclusive. Gabrielle Union also admitted in a separate interview that she used to be triggered by the presence of light-skinned women. So what she was trying to do is she was trying to get them away from each other because they were a light-skinned couple. And yet and still, Dwayne Wade is sit up here trusting Gabrielle Union to stepmother his boys into little girls. They better like dark-skinned women, and it's fine if they do. But what she said is you better like dark-skinned women. However, you better not like light-skinned women. You better not prefer light-skinned women. But if you prefer a dude, that's okay. This is what we're dealing with. How is that both? The only thing that Dwayne Wade has done wrong, which is wrong enough in this case, is that he's being too easy. So he's letting this happen. He's not doing this, but he's letting this happen. He's being too easy. Therein is his sin. He's not abusing her. He's not abusing the boys. Nothing like that. It's just plain and simple. She's the one that promotes the effery. He's going along to get along. He said so himself. There is no both sides in this argument. My cousin was in a situation in which she actually was abused. She showed me the receipts. When she had the evidence, she sent it to me without me asking, what evidence do you have against him? She just sent it to me. Thank you, sweetie. My son. Alina Kahwahara. So she showed the receipts. And this is a case in which I didn't have to ask. But what about when you have a false accuser that turns around and says something like this? They sit up and talk about both sides. Well, y'all did this and we did that. Hold the phone. When do they show receipts? What happens if you ask them to show the evidence of what they say? Just so that you don't join in a false accusation. You see, you can tell that it can't possibly be a both sides argument because where is the hashtag believe him? That hashtag doesn't exist. Type it in and see what happens, what you get. Does it relate to the same thing? It doesn't even relate to the same thing if you find something with that hashtag. So in a nutshell, gentlemen, I think y'all get it. You've been very patient. 37 of you all tuned in. Before I go, I'll take any questions. I give time for you all to type any questions in the chat before I head out. While anybody's typing, I remind you, gentlemen, my militancy is based on this. What I just did was I justified for you why I'm as militant as I am. Why I came to bring not peace, but a sword. and why I came to turn not even son against father, but I did come to turn mother against daughter and against aunt. Well, turn the daughter against mom and against aunt and older sister and cousins. And in the event that any of you had a bad mom, aunt, grandmom, or a bad dad, yeah, I did come to turn you against them if they weren't doing what they were supposed to do. And truth be told, it's hard to tell exactly where, but what I imagine happening is this. And this is just a guess. I suspect that in these areas, these parts of the globe, in which, give me a moment, I'm going to close this door because I'm about to get loud. Hold on a second. All right, sorry about that. Where I see things going is that I see men going into places like the Dominican Republic and ruining it. Honestly, I see brothers that get out, but don't understand, or they get overwhelmed by the good treatment that they receive. Simping, raising not just prices of the pay for play, because I don't recommend or endorse it, but even raising prices of food and things like this. I see that happening in some areas, but what I don't know, because it's already happening in the DR in some areas, they said, but what I don't know is how far it's going to spread. I do see feminism and misandry spreading to places in the world where it was not before. I see polyamory spreading, not because it's superior, but I see it spreading because I don't see men from the societies that are victimized by this turning and reaching out through chat rooms and warning the men in these societies about it. So in other words, many of us aren't going into Filipino chat rooms and telling the men that this is coming down the pike. But the women who are feminists and misandrous will go into the chat rooms and tell women that this is coming down, tell the women about feminism and misandry and how bad men are. So I do see that spreading much faster internationally, much faster than our awareness is spreading. That's what I see. And I hope I'm wrong. Again, it's just a guess that I'm making. I don't think they would. And I'll tell you why. Blitz 7094. Do you think black women will respect black men and black men made as much as white men? Number one, other women can respect their men, sometimes even more than white men, without them making as much. You can look in, like in the Philippines, for instance, and in Thailand. One thing that some brothers are beginning to notice is that white guys that go there get used. They get used for the money. These same ladies, if they vanish with a mayonnaise mafioso's money, they'll turn around and spend it on the brother, share it with a brother. The easiest way for me to get access to some old-phase money, honestly, would be for me to, and I'm married, so I'm not going to do this, but it would be for me to go into Southeast Tropical Asia and get with one of them right after they have vanished with an old-phase money. Because that's one place where actually we black men are preferred over them, but they're used for money. So also the other thing is that in my own experience, the one good job I had in my adult life in the United States, I made more than 4 times what I made any other time as an adult in the US. This will wound up happening. My wife at the time still called one time and cried, complaining about how alone she felt. And I said, yeah, but when I lived there, I wasn't making enough and I was alone. Living with you, I was alone because of the money I wasn't making, because that's how you were. Now the shoe's on the other foot. How about you fuck the shuck up and use this money I'm sending to cover the bills and to save, because this is the first time we've been able to cover bills and save. I had to be mean, but she still had, it was still going to be something. I also don't think that they respect black men if we made as much, because frankly, the fact remains that we're always judging each other by, and they're judging us by whatever it is that we can't do. They are the gatekeepers of sex, and that's fine. Okay. Well, then why are they judging virgin men for the sex to which they did not access? What's the reason? I mean, if you're the gatekeeper, you don't sit up and say, well, you're a piece of crap because you didn't make me get wet when I looked at you. Come on now. I mean, that's literally what they're doing to most men. If the discussion comes up, I mean. Well, it's the same thing with money. We've been systemically locked out of wealth, and yet we've still done better financially than has been expected. We've done better against the odds, but we have been systemically locked out of the wealth. I know because I've heard these discussions sometimes between two old faiths when they didn't realize a brother was listening. And what does the sister do? She sits up and judges us by how we access that which is being intentionally kept away from us. It's always that. So they're only judging by what we don't have. That means that if we had a lot of wealth and no political power, then they would judge us for that. So I don't think that they would actually. Next one, what advice you give brothers who are looking to leave the U.S. but aren't financially stable at the moment? I would say to go ahead and get look into different skills, and I would say to go into the trades. I don't say go into education only because of the debt. If you're educated but not financially stable, then you got a better shot at making it abroad. But if you are, if you're not financially stable and you don't have the education, then I would say check into certain trades and apprenticeships. And different ones have different apprenticeships in different areas. Like I think in the Gulf Coast, HVAC, because you know it can get pretty hot and humid down there. ACs have to work. Modern life depends on ACs, so it's pretty much in demand. At least it was when I lived there. And they have apprenticeships, so you don't pay, you get paid while learning, and then you go into it as a trade. And that's something that actually you can, that's a trade you can take into several places, because like Southeast tropical Asia, it may not be as hot as the summer is in the Southeast US. The summers are hotter in the Southeast US than they are in the tropics, but they still use air conditioning. So you've got this skill, you can save up a little bit in the States and then open up a company in a tropical area. If you're more white collar, if that's just your thing, then look into education. Especially computer skills. If you can teach different computer skills like programming and coding, then you can pretty much go to a lot of places in the world. Let's see here. Frozen Dragon says, what's your email? Okay, hold on. Tell you what, Frozen Dragon, if you put yours into the chat, then I'll tell you what mine is. Then I'll email from my email address. Now, Quaj the Abstract wrote an answer to Blitz 7094. And I would say that even if you got the social status in the upper echelon, it would take years for the respect to catch up. It may even take generations. Maybe it would come, but it would take generations if that was the case. I don't think that would happen as soon as. I don't think that would be instantaneous. And to be honest with you, I have a suspicion that because Western women in general are so focused on weeding out the men they don't want genetically, while still using them for resources, and we know that the sisters are even, they're exaggerated in that regard. I think that one of the reasons sisters talk all this stuff is because I think they talk about being dominated and being beta males because they want us to take it to a physical confrontation based on race. And I think the reason they want to do that is because they, again, want to eliminate the men they don't want. And we know that sisters care about Black men's physique more so than they care about other things. So in their imagination, it would leave nothing but the toughest men to survive. In their imagination, in a race where only the toughest Black men would survive. My problem is that I don't think that anybody really would. I think actually that would eliminate almost all of us. And all they want to do is sit back and collect the spoils without actually having to do any of the fighting and the sacrificing. They wouldn't even hide a fugitive. Notice this, sisters would not even hide a fugitive. If Malcolm X had become a wanted fugitive in his lifetime because they could frame him for a crime he didn't commit, which they couldn't do, but if they had been able to frame him for something he didn't do, they would not have hit him out. Matter of fact, Jamil Al-Amin, he used to be H. Rap Brown. He was framed for those cop murders in Atlanta. I lived in Atlanta. That man did not do that. There was physical evidence of somebody else doing it. Another man came in with matching wounds man whose last name was Jackson, came in with matching wounds and told them some cops started firing at me and I fired back. And they hit me and I got away. And y'all got the wrong man. And they said to him, you're not the one we want for this. I kid you not. But when he was on the run, he couldn't go to Sisters to be hid out. He did go to Whitehall, Alabama, because he was hoping to get refuge there because I think the mayor was his friend, if I'm not mistaken. But he could not run to Sisters to be hidden out. It wasn't possible. And that's what I'm getting at. Don't take my word for it. MOT already answered that question, because MOT, who just got through doing a live, if he might still be on it, actually, he might be in a live. He was when I started mine. Last time I did a live, he came along and he said that a lot of these street dudes that got caught up because it was the sisters that turned them in. The same daggers, the same Klingon bras they're trying to impress turned them in because they wanted things like better Section 8 housing sometimes. So that's what's going on, Ace. And so I don't think that their respect is going to catch up. I don't even think that they're saying for us to go and overthrow white supremacy, because then that would increase their respect. I think they're saying that because although they're physically attracted to us more than they are to the Ofays, they still want to eliminate us. Phantom Clutch said it's not just about the money. They want a buffer class. And in a nutshell, yeah, they want that myth of the mayonnaise womanhood, because they think that the mayonnaise women for whom they cleaned houses back in the day were all the mayonnaise women. They forgot about the poor mayonnaise women that couldn't afford to pay them to clean houses. They forgot about them. They think that all of them lived like Miss Ann on the plantation. So it's not just money per se, but it is materialism, definitely. It is not even hypergamy as much as it is just hypermaterialism. And unfortunately, we men have taken this on, and you can see it in the rap songs. How you gonna brag about balling in a system that was designed for you to struggle? That can mean either that you're just extra good, but it can also mean that you did something wrong for which they rewarded you. It can mean either one. I mean, prisons are designed to keep inmates in, but when you see inmates that have a very high freedom of movement in the prison, other inmates start to wonder what they did to get that. Now, it could be that they flew under the radar and they're simply trusted, or if they don't raise any alarms because they've been there so long quietly, or it could be because they're doing things to help keep the other inmates restricted. And that's the reward. Those are the two things that are going to run through your mind. And we unfortunately have to start putting that thought process in place when it comes to them. How is it that people are spending so much on them? You don't blame someone for giving them something, but you do have to understand that it serves, if your enemy is rewarding them, it serves the purpose of your enemy. And then you got to ask her why she's going along with it if she knows that the person rewarding her is actually the enemy to both of us. Don't let her come and tell you, go storm the fortress and get yourself killed to prove that you're a man. Because we already reached a point where she's not going to believe you're a man until you're dead. Remember, our heroes all got shot. Remember that. Martin was peaceful. They shot him. Shot Malcolm first. Malcolm was actually peaceful as long as you allowed him to be, and he never got involved in violence until the day they shot him. Even then, he was the victim, but they shot him. Jamil Amin got thrown into prison for something he didn't do when someone else confessed to it. That was suppressed. But in the end, what I'm getting at is that our heroes, they die. And that's when sisters will start to say, this is a hero, because they can't appreciate the man that's in front of them. It's a martyr syndrome. If you're really innocent, you'll get killed. That's really, if you're really righteous, you'll die for your righteousness. That's how they feel about it. And I'm sure that day will come at some point, but what they're pretty much doing is they're exaggerating everything. And yeah, that's exactly what one said. If my heart bleeds, your butt will bleed. And that's exactly why it is that they're as high Bristophilic as they are. She said why she dates felons. And it's the same, it goes in line with what Crimson Cure said. Crimson Cure said the real reason that they want these bad dudes is because she said, in a nutshell, it gives you a type of control. Now, there are all these theories to it. And what I'm going to tell you all is that it's good to understand what the reasons might be. That's fine. But never accept anyone's explanation as a valid excuse for them to like bad dudes. Negative stereotypes, the idness. Don't ever accept that. Never. If you want to try to understand why, fine, but don't ever take it as a valid excuse. Well, I feel protected. No, you don't. Because you turn around and give him up to the police when it suits you. Hell, you could actually feel safe. If anything, you could feel safe in another environment. At least Crystal and Carrison said that when she was with her zaddy, that the environment was safe and she could be feminine. At the very least, she admitted that. What a lot of sisters want to do is they want to sit up and say, well, I want to be protected. Yeah, but you always want to remain in these areas that demand protection. What about a safe area? Wa alaikum salam, Robert Mustafa. So what about a safe area? What's wrong with that? And keeping you in that safe area so you ain't got to worry about this other stuff. And they take issue with that because then by you staying in a safe area, I mean, it's okay to have a place there, put them there even. But by you staying in a safe area and by you not going into these dangerous areas, then they start acting like you some kind of softy, something wrong with you. Why ain't you out there dominating a dangerous area? That's all they're doing. That's all they're saying is, why aren't you getting yourself killed? And if a woman is asking in a nutshell, why are you not getting yourself harmed and killed? That's someone that does not love you. Even if they're physically attracted to you, that's someone that doesn't love you. You got to understand, gentlemen, you're in a situation in which she's always judging you by what you don't have. Don't let any of these men jump in and join them and do that and validate them in that. And don't let any such men poison the minds of younger brothers in your presence either. Don't tolerate this from men, because that's treachery. It was already treacherous enough when Boom Shika Bonquish and Sapphire started joining the white supremacist machine against us. And at the very least, you could say, well, they did it for money. And a lot of them didn't get enough money. But then this is even less understandable, because now you got bros, Maggles sitting up here saying these same things, and they're saying it for some approval they're not going to get. They get some hand claps, but they can't even get a hand job. Not that I'm promoting fornication, but the point that they can't get it from women that are not necessarily denying it because of virtue or modesty or spirituality tells you something. It tells you that they are supporting others like them on behalf of someone that doesn't love any of them. They're doing it for even less than that for which she betrayed the man. It just keeps going on, and eventually it's like, eventually you're going to start wondering why somebody is betraying someone when it's actually worse for them to betray. But in any case, I think nobody else has any more questions, and I appreciate you all listening. And I just now explained to you why it is that I say to you at the end of everything, I'm skipping the peace greeting because this was a war message. But now you understand why I always say to you, Black, heterosexual, non-select male power just because they don't like it, and Black patriarchy until extinction or judgment day. Black mind, Black heart, blackout. Thanks for listening.